Hi everyone, welcome back to my podcast concerning philosophical issues and spiritual issues. And today I want to talk about something that happened on my holiday. Just recently been on holiday. You might notice I'm looking a bit brown. And went to Morocco. Lovely country, well recommend it. And anyway, on the flight back I met this chap and he was speaking to me about, sitting next to each other on the plane, and I actually noticed him before in the airport, and I thought, I feel like he might be someone I should speak to. You know that feeling, I don't know if you know that feeling that there's a connection somehow, there's a recognition of some kind. And as it would happen, and he seemed to have the same as well, he looked at me a couple of times, you know how people do, and they're like, and they're slight recognition, slight connection. And he happened to have a seat right next to me. And it was just a short flight because I was coming back to the UK, but it was via Madrid, and so this was the Tangier to Madrid, so it's just like an hour and 15 minutes or something. And he was very keen on 0 point energy or free energy. You've probably heard about it, like cold fusion is one idea. There's low energy, I can't remember. Anyway, there's all sorts of these ideas out there, and you can see lots of YouTube videos where people claim to be showing a machine that's what's called over unity. So it's actually producing more energy than's going into it, which in classical physics is more or less thought to be impossible. There is something called the Casimir effect, spelled with a K, Casimir effect, which is recognised by mainstream physics and is 0 point energy, but it's not really going to run anything, as far as I understand it. So you can have a look on that, look it up if you're interested. But anyway, and he, as you might imagine, he was also into some of these ideas about conspiracy and the Illuminati and that kind of idea, world government. I'm not saying that this guy was a crank, because he's far from it. He was just an open-minded person, and someone who's looked into some of these subjects and got interested in it more than anything. I think there's a lot of truth in some of it. I'm not saying that I think it's all wacky by any means. Even free energy devices, I think are possible. Perhaps that there is a controlling group or a group of people. Excuse me. There's a group of people who are very powerful and are controlling large amounts of money, large amounts of companies, large amounts of political power around the world, behind the scenes, pulling strings, and working together is plausible, very plausible. And it just suddenly occurred to me when he was talking about it, that he was talking, and in general people talk about let's just use the word Illuminati, because that is the word that people use. That in general, when people talk about the Illuminati, there's an assumption, which in philosophy is always something to be interested in and examine. Any assumption that hasn't been examined, let's have a look at that. And there's always an assumption that they're kind of evilly motivated. that they're or selfishly motivated. And I suddenly found myself questioning this with him, and never really occurred to me before to question this, or not to this level. I was questioning whether we can be so confident that the Illuminati are ill-intentioned. That is not to say that some of what they do might be ill, might be bad or not so good. But I'm talking about their intentions. Whether their intentions are to gain more power, to gain more money, to gain more, power, I suppose, would be the main motivation, potentially. Or whether they've got some good intentions. Perhaps there's more than one group. There's one that's more motivated by good, and one that's more motivated by selfish profit or power. And so maybe the whole picture's a bit more complicated. And then if you bring in spirituality into this question, if you believe in a all-powerful or very powerful, perhaps the word might be God or source or universal spirit, universal consciousness, if you believe in that, then you've got to tend to believe that everything is happening for a good reason. Even if we can't see it, that being, source, I tend to use the word source because I think it's fairly neutral and it says it all, the beginning of everything. If we believe in this source, this loving, very powerful source, then surely it's got our backs. Surely it's not allowing bad things to happen. Ultimately bad things. Now, it obviously allows a lot of bad things to happen. We all know that. There's wars going on, there's, well, let's not dwell on these things, but there's plenty of apparently bad things going on. But if those things are bad in the short term, but good in the long term, then they're ultimately not bad things. They just look bad. So it's a bit like if we didn't understand why somebody was, I'll use this example again, rubbing a very astringent liquid on a cut we've got. If we don't understand why that's happening, we might think that they're just hurting us for no reason. Yeah? Why are you putting that alcohol on my cut? Ow, ow, ow. That's just making it worse. Yeah? But when we understand longer term and the more complexities and what's going on, we realise, no, they're not trying to hurt us. They're trying to help us. Even though it does hurt a bit at first. So we have to assume, we can at least ask the question that if Source is good, loving and extremely powerful and intelligent and so on, presumably all these things that we see around us that might appear to be bad, might appear to be evil even, are potentially not. And if we look at the Illuminati from this point of view, then how could some of the things that are attributed to them be potentially for the good? So let's say, and this doesn't actually matter about their motivations, so they could be motivated out of selfish reasons. But what they don't know is they're still working for the good. Yeah, and indeed some of them could be consciously trying to work for the good and actually not. So, because we're all human beings, we're all fallible, and hopefully some of them are working for the good and actually achieving that. And so, how could that say some of the things that are attributed to them? For instance, the accumulation of wealth in the hands of a few. That seems to be hard to understand how that could be for the good. You know, the fact that large portions of the population of the world are not living a lifestyle that they should be, by all rights. That we could as a world, we could give them a much better lifestyle. And yet all this money is being accumulated in a few hands, and if it was distributed a bit better, you would think that we've got an obviously better world. Now, that's hard for me to see an answer to that one. But what about, there's often this theory that, well, perhaps you've got some answers to that. That'd be interesting to see if anyone's got some positive spins on how that could be positive. But one that did occur to me, which definitely I could see as potentially being positive, is often the Illuminati are attributed as being wanting to hold back the awakening of humanity, using, you know, the media, vaccines, drugs, fluoride in the water, TV, all sorts of methods are said to be used to do this, and yet they're failing. The awakening is happening and they're slowing it down, but they're failing to hold it completely back, and they will inevitably fail. So this is the story that's told. Now, if let's assume, rather than they've got selfish motivation, let's assume for some reason that they don't, just for the fun of it. Now, why would they do all those horrible things, apparently horrible things, for positive reasons? Well, one possible explanation is that they're not actually failing to hold back the awakening. What they're actually doing is slowing it and keeping it under some kind of control. So they're not trying to stop it or reverse it. They're actually trying to slow it and contain it, but allow it to continue. And so why would they do that? Well, I can quite well imagine that if large portions of the population began to really wake up to their own existence in a more full way, large numbers of them together, that it could cause a lot of problems, a lot of social chaos, and even, you know, widespread death, disease, hunger, you know, a lot of horrible consequences. Because if most people go through similar phases to what I went through, as I would say, I kind of had a sort of awakening, and my most strongest feeling for a long time as regards that was fear, because I came from a kind of, almost, from my point of view now, it seemed like prior to this awakening, I was in a kind of almost like a zombie-like state, and just following behind the other people, just following the track, a bit like a mule train, you know, donkeys or mules or horses, just following head down, just following the horse ahead. No real agency, no real self-directedness, no real responsibility. and no deep consciousness of what was going on, or even of myself. And perhaps people crave this awakening, and I think they should, but I think it's also not an easy process. It's frightening, and suddenly now the responsibility is on your shoulders. You've now got the choice about what you do. Do you follow the mule ahead? Do you walk off the path completely? Where does that path go? Why would I walk off? Why would I stay here? Suddenly you've got decisions and consequences for those decisions, and no idea how to make those decisions, or what you should even perhaps you don't even know who you are, because you've been living this life, this zombie life, that's been given to you by your parents, by your society, by the TV, by the drugs. It wasn't your life, and so you don't. In a sense, you haven't even been alive. It's a birth of a kind, and it's very challenging. Or I found it very challenging. I think some people don't find it as challenging, but I would say I for a couple of years I was just hanging in there by my fingernails, and for me what helped me was philosophy, which is why I'm so interested in it, and why I do these podcasts and other things. So I hope it would help other people have an easier journey through that, what's I think sometimes been called the dark night of the soul. And I believe that many people don't make it through that. They don't make it through that mentally or emotionally or physically. And I think a lot of the or spiritually, in fact, I think a lot of the drug deaths that we see are to do with this, where people choose drugs as an alternative to the zombie life they had before. It doesn't work. Or they choose religion. Whatever religion's being available, whatever will convince them to go back to sleep, and it doesn't work. Or they choose money, perhaps, and the pursuit of money, and none of this satisfies. And then perhaps they choose power. And now we come back to the Illuminati, because many of them are said to be fabulously wealthy. We're talking hundreds of millions, billions, even trillions of dollars, controlled by individuals or small family groups, or certainly secret societies, and probably estimated around, maybe they control maybe $100 trillion worldwide, and 60% of the corporations, major corporations, they control. So these people do not lack money, and they know that money isn't the answer. Some of them, I suspect, know that power isn't even the answer, and they've had that up to here. And they are the ones, I think, who woke up, maybe, and genuinely are a bit illuminated, and woke up in a position of enormous power and wealth. And then they had to decide what to do. And it's easy for us to say, well, they should do better. But it's also very difficult for us to understand what it would be like to be in that position. I think it would not be easy at all to decide what to do. But certainly if it was me, I would not do anything too radical. I would be very, very conservative, because I would take things very slowly and very carefully. If I was going to change things, I would try to do it in a very slow and gentle way, so that if it looks like it's going in the wrong direction, I can perhaps pull it back. And if it looks like it's going in the right direction, then that's fine. There's no big hurry. Yeah. So you can keep some kind of semblance of control, and we are talking, you know, a semblance of control. To control billions of people is just miraculous if you can. You can't. But to keep some kind of order is very essential, I think. And if I was in that position, I would think that. And so maybe we need to be a bit more open to the idea that some of these people are well-intentioned, and not paint them all with the same brush. And even those who are not, maybe we need to be open to the idea that ultimately they are working for the good, whether they choose to or not. And some of those who are choosing to work for the good are not. For all I know, I'm not. Yeah, I think I'm working for the good. I think by doing these videos, maybe one or two people might gain something from them, but who knows? I mean, I can't tell for sure whether that's the case. So, yeah, so I think that's my message for today. A bit less resistance in some people's terms. Teals, for instance, Teal Scott, Teal Swan. That's a route to less resistance towards the Illuminati. You know, that we recognise that everything is ultimately for the good, because that's guaranteed by source, if we believe in that. And also that perhaps we should be at least open to the idea that even the very powerful, who are apparently trying to control humanity, that they may not be ill-intentioned, and they may not be ill-acting in actuality. They may be doing us a big favour. So, thanks for watching, and see you again soon.